Today I'm going to be walking you guys through a complete maintenance session of this tank behind me. So let's get started. So this tank is a 12-inch cube or 30 centimeters. It's roughly 7.5 gallons or 30 liters. And as of today, it is exactly 60 days old. And I do maintenance on it every week, and this changes from week to week. But this week I have a lot to do, so I figured it'll be an interesting time to show you guys what it goes through every week. So currently, this tank is really thriving. It's doing super good, and I'm gonna walk you guys through the whole maintenance process, what I usually do every week, and what things I have to do different this week, and hopefully teach you guys some new things, give you some tips and tricks so you guys can get some use out of this video and learn something new. Okay, first things first. This tank has CO2 injected through an inline diffuser. So you see nothing in the tank, no equipment, but this spreads CO2 around really well. And the reason I start with this is that on all my tanks with CO2, I always wait till it's turned off before I start working on my maintenance. Working on a tank with CO2, as you're adding more and more CO2, it's going to slowly lower down the water pH. But when you do a water change, you're adding a lot of water without any CO2 in it, and this causes it to jump back up. And if the CO2 is still being added, it's going to lower down. And you have this fluctuation that goes on where your pH goes down, then up, then back down, and this isn't great for your inhabitants. Your fish aren't going to like it. In this tank I've got some sensitive shrimp, which aren't going to like it either. And another thing people don't think about is your plants don't like it either. It's going to stress them out, and this is one of the leading causes for really bad nuisance algae like blackbeard algae. So we really want to avoid having all these fluctuations occurring with our pH and our CO2 levels to keep things consistent. So I always wait till after my CO2 is turned off to start working on my maintenance. That being said, this is just something little. I don't think it's the end of the world if you do maintenance while your CO2's on. I don't completely avoid it. It's better to do your maintenance than to not. And if you can't avoid not doing it while your CO2 is on, it won't be the end of the world. The main objective today is to kind of keep the plants in line. I know if I push off trimming much longer, it's gonna get out of hand really quick. I've got a lot of fast growers, so I wanna go in there and take care of them before it gets too far gone. So today we're starting off with working on my Rotala macrandra mini butterfly. This plant is a pretty difficult one, and it's one I've really struggled with in the past, but this is the best I've ever grown it, and it is looking super beautiful. In my experience, it can have difficulty stunting after trimming it, so I'm crossing my fingers this won't happen because I'm not replanting all the tops like I usually do whenever I touch this stuff. I'm usually super cautious, and this time I'm seeing what happens. At the back we have Myriophyllum Guyana mini, and this stuff is an absolute weed, but as I go on and longer in this hobby, I realize how important it is to have at least one of these in the tank. It's a pain to trim them, but they eat up so much nutrients and make it so much easier to get to this stage where you have a beautiful planted tank and avoid all those early algae spikes when you're starting up a new tank. This thing soaks up so much extra nutrients, gets rid of extra nitrates. The only problem is I have to trim it really frequently. About every 2 weeks I do a small trim to keep it in check, because if I let it get too long, it's gonna shade out all the bottoms and they're gonna start dying and causing a lot of problems. So I trim this stuff really frequently. Pro tip, when you're planning a new aquascape, try to incorporate something into it that'll eat up all those extra nutrients early on. If it's just the starting stage, you can just have it in there temporarily, then take it out, or just plan your aquascape around it to have it in there forever, because it makes it a lot easier to maintain these aquascapes long term if you have something that eats up those extra nutrients you may be having. And one of the final things I have to work on today that I've really been dreading is taking care of this dwarf hairgrass. It is so satisfying to trim, but man, cleaning up the mess afterwards is awful. It gets everywhere, it sticks to the glass, and it's just a mess. It takes forever if you're gonna clean it up by net. So the best way I've found and the best money I've spent in this hobby is on my Eheim Skim 350 surface skimmer. I stick this in there, it sucks up all the dwarf hairgrass off the surface and cuts down the time I'd take to clean this all up, at least by half. One tip I just recently saw on Instagram is someone was using tweezers and pulling out the plants while it was still running. What happens is they get clogged up pretty quick with all this stuff, and what I used to do was unplug the whole thing, take it out, and then clean it out, and do this around 3 or 4 times each time I trim my carpeting plants. But now I've just started using the tweezers and plucking out what I can, and it really speeds up the whole process. You really want to make sure you get rid of all of these trimmings, because anything left behind will slowly just rot in your tank, and that will cause spikes in organic waste, which you really don't want. If you guys have made it this far, make sure you drop a like down below. I've been trying to make a lot more content, more specifically educational content and stuff you guys will find useful. Content I could have used when I was learning this hobby. With all the tips and tricks I had to learn on my own. So I'm trying to teach you guys as much as I can, so make sure you subscribe and follow me along on my journey. Now for my weekly water change, I really don't drain too much, maybe 10 to 20% of the water. I try to keep things pretty consistent because I have Caridina shrimp, which are more sensitive to harsh changes, so I try to do little water changes so I don't disturb them too much. That being said, after talking with some people who know what they're doing a lot better than me, especially with these Caridina shrimp, I've made some changes to the way I make my RO water that I've been noticing some improvements with their health, and they've even started breeding. Before having this conversation, I used to remineralize my RODI water, reverse osmosis deionized water, to a TDS of about 130, and after having this I learned that you're not actually supposed to use the DI subunit of your RO system. This actually raises the pH back up after your RO unit has worked to drop it. So I've removed that, and then I'm also only remineralizing it to 100 TDS, and I'm slowly changing this water in this tank over to that every week, adding about 10 to 20% of this and slowly lowering the TDS. And right now I've got it about 157, and it used to be as high as 190 or 200. And like I mentioned, since I've started doing this, I've slowly started realizing and noticing better shrimp health. They've started breeding, and they're looking a lot more happy and healthy. At about the 6-week mark, this tank had started to get a lot of green hair algae, which if you have ever dealt with is really not a lot of fun. This stuff is awful. After doing a little bit of research, talking to a couple people, they attributed it usually to being from low nitrate levels. So I started dosing Tropica specialized fertilizer. This stuff will have nitrates in it, and before that I hadn't been dosing anything. And as I started dosing this, the hair algae went away super quick, and this tank's looking a lot better. The tank is roughly 7.5 gallons or 30 liters, and I'm adding 2 pumps of Tropica specialized, which is a little bit more than they recommend over at Tropica. So I think the added nitrates really helped clear this up, helped my plant health, and soaked up everything and got rid of all that hair algae. I don't know how it works. I need to do a little bit more research, because that would be an interesting video in its own, because green hair algae is an absolute pain, and I've dealt with it a lot in the past before, and this is the first time I've ever really gotten rid of it. And then finally I add one more product every week, and that is SL Aqua Magic Powder. Now I don't really know what this is or what it does, but it's a bacteria powder. It's kind of similar to Bacter AE, a little bit different, but the shrimp go absolutely nuts for this. I have a little surface skimmer which will suck it in and spread it throughout the tank, and soon after I added this, even after my water change, all the shrimp were out, grabbing this stuff, going nuts for it. I think it generates some biofilm as well, but they really liked it nonetheless. And that's just about everything that goes into maintaining my 7.5 gallon Nano cube. I hope you guys learned something new and found this video helpful or useful, and if you did, make sure to drop a like or subscribe to my channel for more content. But anyways guys, this was Calum or Calum's Fish Tanks. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.